Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this edition of Leak Project. I am your host, Rex Bear, and we have Dr. Joseph Mara with us again. He was on the show a few weeks ago. It'd be fun to pick his brain right now. It's really unfortunate, too, you guys, about what happened, if you guys are aware of that mass shooting that took place in Orlando. Now, I don't know if this thing actually happened as they say it did on the media, if it was a big false flag event, what exactly took place. But I can certainly tell that with all the signs that have happened in the past with Sandy Hook, Boston Marathon, the Colorado shootings in the movie theater and out there in Aurora, Colorado, there's just so much that I see similarities. And with politics right now being a political year, what is the agenda of this? So supposedly 50 people were shot and killed in the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida. This happened at approximately 2 a.m. Now, there's already an entire article about it on Wikipedia that you can read, and they've got everything about the gunman. It's amazing how they were able to obtain this much information and release it this fast, isn't it? His name is Omar Mateen, and he is supposedly tied to terrorist links with ISIS, etc. And how did he go into this nightclub and take out 50 people by himself? So if this really did happen, my condolences to the family members and those that are involved that lost somebody. And if this was a false flag and if nobody died, let's find out about it either way. So what I would recommend to the listeners out there, we've got about 30,000 subscribers. Actually, we broke the 30,000 subscriber mark today, so I've got to give out this really cool t-shirt to our 30,000th. We can get the names of all these people. Let's find out when their funerals are. Let's find out if these are real people, the 50 that supposedly were killed. Maybe we get into contact with the family members and see if this is something that really took place. Also, maybe we can get a hold of the hospitals out there that are closest to proximity, any medical records that we can get, paramedics, firefighters, police information, video footage from street cams or maybe other businesses around that area. There's got to be plenty of video footage somewhere if this thing took place. There's a billion cameras out there. So let's put our heads together and find out if this really happened the way that the mainstream brain drain media is explaining it. Joseph, thank you so much for joining us tonight here at the Leak Project, my friend. How the heck are you?
I'm great. Hey, thank you for having me on again.
Oh, it's absolutely a pleasure. I know last time we talked, we got tons of good reviews. I had multiple emails saying, get this guy back on as soon as possible. And we missed out on some really important stuff last time, so I'm excited we get to discuss this. But bringing up what I was just talking about there, I mentioned this before the show, and you kind of said you're so busy you don't really have time to watch the news. And the first thing that came to your mind, though, you said was kind of like the previous false flags, Sandy Hook, Boston Marathon, etc., correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And now that I'm reading what you have here that you're sharing on Skype, as soon as I read the name and as soon as you started reading, talking about terrorists and all this stuff, it took me back to 9/11. And anybody that's done the research in 9/11 knows 100% that that was all false flag. It was an inside job. And, it's just taking our liberties away, and it's causing fear. And the only thing that separates, or the major thing that separates the people, is fear. And so when you're traveling, when you're just almost anything, you want to go to a nightclub, if you just want to get out, and on every avenue, they've created these false flags. I mean, the Boston Marathon. I mean, here this is this innocent thing where people are running, and I mean, just on every level of humanity, they just seem to put this out there, this terror, just to create more fear and more control, more laws. Let's get the guns, all this crap. That's and like you said at the beginning, if this did happen, of course, I'm sending love and light to the people that were affected. But there's something going on, and just intuitively, there's more going on here than what they've been portraying.
And look at all these supposed references that they put together in such a short amount of time. I'm looking at 51 references. And I'll bet you all of these guys got the information from the same place. So please, if there's somebody in Orlando, Florida, around this club, maybe you're a business owner across the street, maybe a couple blocks away, there's got to be some way that we can get some video footage at the exact same time that this supposedly took place. And it was supposedly from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. So once again, if this did take place and somebody lost a loved one, I am so sorry. My condolences 100%. And if it is legit, could there possibly be some type of terrorist cells that were allowed to come in here that might have influence with certain black ops type factions? What would you think about that?
I bet you any money that within the next couple of days you're going to find out that people are going to be linking these, in quotes, crisis actors and actresses that were at these other scenes that are just paid individuals that come to the scene and they create all this havoc. And I bet any money. I could be wrong, but this is just too convenient. I mean, when was this supposed to happen? Today?
It happened from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. supposedly this morning.
And all of this information is out there. I mean, like you said, it's just, it's too convenient.
I mean, look at this. 51 articles right now, and they were all put together conveniently on this Wikipedia page. Somebody must have a lot of spare time on their hands to be able to put this together so professionally. You know, I mean, you've got the nice bullet points here. You've got the links you can click on. The paragraphs are perfect. All the references, everything. I mean, you've got the... This is very fascinating. And also thinking about it in who is going to gain from this type of political event. Now, would it be the Democrats? Would it be the Republicans? Would it be both? Because I'm still thinking in my mind that this whole fiasco with Trump and Clinton, I think they're working together behind the scenes so that Clinton will actually win. And that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. So once again, I don't have the answers. That's what my guts tell me, and it's never been wrong previously. So what do you think about that?
I think you're right on. I don't think anybody that's running right now is going to be president. That's my gut feeling.
Who do you think's going to win?
I think it's going to be. I don't think it's anybody that we see that's on the scene right now. I think it's going to be a shock and awe surprise come November.
Okay, and let's say that happens, Joseph. Why do you feel that way?
I don't know. Just like I said, I don't have time to follow it, and I don't really like to follow it. It's all a bunch of BS, and it's just, you know, what I like about Trump, at least when I did follow some of it early on, is he flat out just gives it how it is, and it's like I'm like, whoa, that's a truth bomb. Now, some of the things, of course, I don't agree with, but other things, he's just giving it how it is, and it's like, wow, this guy he's brave to come out and say it. But on the other hand, I'm like, I think he's a plant. I think he's just there as an actor to
and
distract.
A very savvy businessman.
I think he is. I think there's probably some dealings going on as far as business-wise and money that has to do with him being where he is. I really don't think anybody, if I could be wrong, but I really don't think anybody that's in the running is going to end up being our president. I hope it's somebody a heck of a lot better than what we got running right now. Maybe it's just my wishful thinking, but it's more of a gut feeling.
And if Trump was legit with the stuff that he says, because he does seem to be a straight shooter when he talks a lot about politics and things that are going on behind the scenes. And I can certainly appreciate that. He's certainly entertaining to watch. So we'll see what happens. But, you know, I'm just looking at this Wikipedia page again still, you guys, and look at all this information. I mean, you've got the reactions from the governor and the White House and the mayor and just all this information that was just so conveniently put together such a short time after. I'm sure, like you said, there's going to be a lot of information that's going to come out on YouTube and other forums, alternative news sites that will have more connections. I know that the Boston Marathon, there's so many weird synchronicities with that. For example, the Family Guy episode that came out a week before that showed Peter running down all the people in the marathon, and you could see their limbs flying all over the place. People that were actually running in the Boston Marathon that had done many previous to that said there were those that told people to don't be alarmed when you hear explosions because there's going to be a drill. So, and then the bomb itself that supposedly went off at the Boston Marathon where it took place was, and you can look this up, you guys, 666 Boylan Street. So how interesting is that? Regardless, I don't know. I mean, it could all just be, concentrated swamp gas that I've been exposed to, and my mind is not thinking the right way. But man, I'll tell you what, this is fascinating. So we'll see what happens. I can't wait to see what people have to say about this. Now, what I'd like to do, I think we've discussed this enough. Let's jump into the presentation we were going to talk about last time, Joseph, but we started discussing other things.
All right. I really think that that's a distraction, this whole thing, like this. Before I move on, I just wanted to say one last thing is I think that this Florida thing is a distraction. I really think that look over here in this hand while we're doing this in the other hand. So I'm curious to see over the next week or two what we look back on and go, oh, that's why they did it, because they were doing this. Do you know what I'm saying?
Wag the dog.
Yep.
That was a good movie, by the way. For those that haven't seen it, I'd recommend picking it up through Netflix or something like that, because they really explain. I don't know, that movie actually came out about the same time there was a scandal in the Clinton administration. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't know that. Okay, so basically, now this is a several-hour lecture, but I just want to blow through this real quick to just get the listeners thinking maybe in a different line, because it's going to give you some aha moments like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And it kind of pulls everything together about what's going on in the world right now, talks about humanity. It's the things that I've garnered by practicing family medicine, and I'm boarded in family medicine, but I've also worked in other areas. And like I said, just briefly for those who haven't caught the first show, I was born and raised Catholic. I went through the traditional education. I had a near-death experience. I became a hypnotherapist, a Reiki master doing energy healing, which led to channeling. And my best friend, Terry Ippoletti, she's a deep channeler. And so I hired her to be my hypnotherapist and my Reiki master for my urgent care centers. And I would refer patients to them. And it would just give people a choice. You can do the traditional route, or you can do what we call complementary or alternative. And so I couldn't personally do it myself because I didn't have, well, first of all, I couldn't clone myself. And so I had to hire somebody to do that for me. And so every day we were channeling around lunchtime and maybe after work. And this led to traveling the country and, I mean, all over the place. East Ranch, staying at Cynthia Crawford's where I caught the Phoenix Lights on my own camcorder. And then again, it led to my Universal Talk radio show. I needed a platform to speak and interview people because my biggest goal was I want the truth. And I kept asking for the truth. And the more I asked, the more the universe brought me individuals with different pieces to the puzzle.
And you've actually been able to see many things that people, probably a lot of those that listen to this broadcast would like to go out and experience, that have just seen it on the internet or talk to their friends that have been there. And I know that some of the paths that you've taken, I've gone in those same directions, and it's amazing what's out there. It really is. I'm a lot more versed with stuff in the States. You've been overseas a lot more than I have, but it certainly is incredible the times that we live in. And it's going to be interesting to see what does happen when we get closer to the elections, here in the next couple of months. I wonder if there's going to be this, I don't know if you've kept up on the series House of Cards, where you've got Frank Underwood and Claire, where they're playing, you got Kevin Spacey in the series that Netflix has.
I haven't, I'm not aware of it.
Okay, well, basically, Frank Underwood's the president. I can't believe I can't remember the name of this right now. But regardless, I'm going to edit that part out.
Okay.
He's basically, they start a war because he knows that he's at the end of his political career and all this stuff's coming out. And if he doesn't, do something drastic, that he's going to lose his position in office as president. And the way that he got in office was very vindictive and cunning to get to that position. And so he's like, okay, so what do we do? Well, let's just start a freaking war. So I'm wondering if that could be the next playing card for whoever might be in power that doesn't want to lose it.
Yeah, they tell you everything in fiction, in the movies. on television through a series. And
House of
so
Cards.
they do this because of karma. So what they'll say is, we told the people, we showed them through fiction. It was just they were too stupid to realize because they're sheeple. And so I sent you a video today. Actually, it was a link for a YouTube that
Yeah.
shows you exactly how they look at us.
For those that have seen, I think it's called Ants, where it's that Disney film by Pixar. You've got the grasshoppers, which control the ants, and there's a few grasshoppers to hundreds of ants. And in that scene, that grasshopper's going around to the other guys saying, look, you think that these ants are weak, but there's hundreds of them to one of us. So if they all get together, then they could take us over, and we can't let them realize that. We have to keep them in their place.
That's right. Yeah, they outnumber us 100 to 1 or 1,000,000 to 1 or whatever it is. And so it's all about keeping them, and that what they're depicting is humanity. And so those that are controlling us, and they're doing it through things like this Orlando happening, and they control us through fear. And that's exactly what that depiction was.
And, I mean, we've even talked to Ronald Kessler before here on the Leak Project. He's interviewed many people that have been in the White House. I think he even talked to George Bush Sr., interviewed him a couple of times. And I asked him the question about House of Cards in parallel to the political scene out there in D.C. And the way that he phrased it was very interesting. I'd recommend people go back and listen to that podcast. It's on theleakproject.com, Ronald Kessler, to hear what he said, because it was quite fascinating. Yeah. Now, we're back on to the different ways to kind of raise the vibrational frequency. I was listening to one of your interviews earlier today that you have on YouTube, and you said, what I want to do first, you guys, is raise the vibrational consciousness of everybody here. And I think that that's really why the people that have the majority control keep so much fear in the masses with media and entertainment, because it keeps the vibrational frequencies lower for people. They are easier to control, and then most of them are in a fight or flight mode, which in return is much easier to sway in a certain direction. They know what you're going to do.
Right, and it comes down to the energy or vibration within each dimension. And so if you're in a low third dimensional awareness or consciousness, you're in fear. And so if they can keep us there, and we don't have the opportunity to raise up to where they are and say a fourth dimensional awareness or vibration, they can control us. Once you step out of third dimensional consciousness or vibration, the game's over. And that's what I'm going to try to get through. And it helps you make sense of everything that's going on the planet right now, what we're seeing, like as far as people seeing Nibiru or other planets and all this other kind of stuff. Like I told you in our last interview, I've gone to different places that were, just by virtue of being on the land or the ley lines at, say, Mount Adams up in East Eddy Ranch. Just by you being there, you tune into it, tune into the planet. We're born on this planet. So as you raise in vibration, you start to see things that you normally wouldn't see because you're in a different dimension, if you will. And so I'm going to get to that as we get on through here.
Right. It's interesting how we are our co-creators.
We absolutely are. And that's the confusing part, because we think that we can control this, our lives just with our own will. And there are too many variables to, I'm going to try to get into a lot of those tonight if we can. But one of the things is we're co-creators. There's it's not just our own consciousness. There's a collective consciousness that we're all connected together. We're all one. And so we're co-creating everything together. Now, of course, in our intermediate area of creation, yes, we have just the way we think creates our reality. Thought becomes reality, and therefore life doesn't happen to us. It happens from us, which I'll get into here in a little bit.
Okay, great. So part one, defining humanity.
Right, and so this is how I view each individual person. Like, you're trained in medicine that we just have this physical body, and that's all that we focus on, and that's what you learn about. And yeah, you learn about like the brain, and of course there's psychiatrists, psychologists, they're out there, but there's so many other. So I look at it in five different aspects of humanity: the mind body, the physical body, the spiritual body, the emotional, and the energetic. And that's what makes us human. So then I go in here and I just kind of break it down and say, okay, well, what is the mind body? And so in my opinion, these are all my definitions. So, I'm not pushing my beliefs on anybody, but this is how I look at it: the sum of all experiences within each lifetime. And the reason I say that is because I think we live thousands of lifetimes if we so choose. And so the mind body is influenced by our parents, traditional education, media, culture, religions, and on and on and on. And we only use 8 to 10% of our brain, so what's the rest for? So it's also broken up into the left brain and the right brain. And so that's why you can see some people, they focus on one, like the arts, or music. And then other people are more into the physical. And so you can see the difference here if you just read down through yourselves. You can pause this if you want, but the YouTube when it comes out. But there's the left brain, then there's the right brain. And so you can see the differences there. And so this is where I was saying thought becomes reality. What you think is what you create. And life doesn't happen to us, it happens from us. So what you think and what you focus on, that's your perspective. That's the mind body. Then there's the physical body. And it's made up of a composition of cells all containing DNA, which everybody knows about. It's kind of our guidance system to traverse this dimension. You stub your toe, you're in pain. You're like, oh, ow, I shouldn't do that again, right? Then the physical body utilizes these 5 senses within physical. And then I add the pineal gland just because it is physical. And of course, it's influenced by polarity. There's the inside influences and outside. And that means physical, like within your physical body. If you're, say, the cells of your body, because of the way you think, and I'll tie all this in later, but because of the way you think with the mind body, you can affect the physicality. And so they've proven this with your cells. They kind of shrink. And that's how dis-ease is created through the way you think. But that's what I'm trying to say there, is that not only is it influenced by the outside, like if you go out into the cold without a coat on and it drops your body temperature, you're more susceptible to getting an illness or a dis-ease. But there's also the influence of the inside of the physical body as well. And that has to do with how you eat and whether you're exercising or not, other influences like what you're thinking.
Okay.
And we only use 3 to 5% of our DNA. And so not only is it the physical makeup of the body, but one of the senses we look to our eyes for a lot. Like, a lot of people, the old saying, well, how's that go? Believe half of what you see and none of what you hear.
Right.
And so it's because, look at the depiction here. Our vision is right there with that. If you can see the colors of light right there, that's what the human being can see. And beyond it, say on the right side is X-rays and gamma rays. To the left is the microwave and the radio wave. And it shows you, it depicts how fast or how slow these waves are. But my point here is, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's just not within our visual spectrum. And so we've developed tools for some of the things that are out there that we otherwise wouldn't know or wouldn't believe in. So you have to be open-minded in order to, the biggest word is believe. You have to be open-minded so you can even come to the possibility of a belief system, right? So if you're closed-minded, it goes back to the mind body, what your parents have told you, even though you have this physical body that you can see within a physical spectrum of light, if you are open up to the possibility that there's more out there, just by being open, you can have that potential. And so this goes back to the East Eddy Ranch. Because I was full on open and I was expecting, I was hopeful, I was excited, and everybody around us, around me and Terry was like so excited, we are all seeing the same thing at the same time. And so again, it comes back to that point of just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Right. And also, your thoughts will filter out what your physical eyes see quite a bit too, won't they?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It comes down to belief system. And so here again, if you look at the waves and how fast they go as they go up, and the gamma rays are so fast. And I think that's where we're heading. I think we're being there's this influx of gamma rays coming from our sun and then from the central sun. I think our sun is a portal that gets information, gets vibration from our central sun, and it comes to us. And it's not just affecting humanity or the planet, but it's also affecting the solar system, the galaxy, and the whole universe.
Now, when you say central sun, you're referring to like the inner core of the Earth.
Well, there's that part too, but there's Alcyon, which is like if you were to go to the very center of our galaxy and then the very center of our universe. I think that there's each one, if from the very start, the way I look at it is like it would be a huge sun that's neck down each step of the way until it reaches us. That's how I look at it. We have from the center of our universe, there's a pulsation of energy. And I'm trying to think of a way to put this. Like within a vehicle, there's relays or transformers, that if you were to get the full-on energy to particular components, it would just destroy the component because it's too much energy. And it's the same with us as human beings. I think we're shielded from the major vibrations that could be just completely obliterating us in physicality.
You know, I've been really skeptical about the Planet X phenomenon for quite some time now, but some of the recent footage, video footage as well as pictures that I've seen, have really started to make me wonder about other things, like, because I've been talking for the past 4 years about how extreme the sun has gotten. And not only just when you walk outside, you can feel a difference on your skin if the temperature is the same, but also the color of it, how white and bright it is.
Yes.
So I saw this footage the other day that somebody sent in that wants to remain anonymous, that listens to us here at the Leak Project, and he used several filters, and you could see him pull the filters up in front of the camera as he was doing it to show all the reference points that he possibly could. And there was the sun, and then right above the sun, there was what looked like its little brother. And those two bad boys would not bounce around. They stayed stationary, and you could see the reflection of both of those anomalies with the different filters that he used, and you were easily able to decipher what was a lens flare or a refraction versus the stationary objects. So could that possibly be, when you look at the sun today, as it being so extreme, but you can't tell if it's one or two, if there are two suns, that could explain it, possibly, in my opinion. What's your thought on that?
I think that's a good theory. I think the way I look at it now, just today, and before I have an interview like this, all of a sudden I get downloaded with different information. And so it's interesting
Satellites.
that you talk about this. I'm sorry?
It's the satellites, the MK Ultra stuff.
It must be.
I'm just kidding.
I'm getting downloaded. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. So I really think it's just like the East Eddy Ranch. Like central Pennsylvania where I was at, I wasn't seeing anything. I go to some of these locations and now I'm tuned in. I'm at a higher vibration. I can see what's already there, but I can't see it because I'm not at that vibration. I think that's our solar system is being pulled through this galaxy. I think this galaxy is being pulled into another galaxy. I think we're constantly in motion. And I think that we're in these higher gamma rays right now. And as everybody's raising in vibration, we are now able to see what's in a higher rate, a higher frequency, a higher vibration, if you will. And say 10 years ago, we weren't where we are right now, so we couldn't possibly see it with our physical eyes. And now not only are we have cameras to pick it up, but even if I look back 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I'll bet if I looked in some of the footage I have that probably captured some things on my camera, I wouldn't have recognized them because I was just not looking for it. My perspective
Right.
was different then. So I really think that what we're seeing right now, it may have always been there at the vibration or the dimension, if you will, that we're currently at. And now we can see it, where before we physically just couldn't see it.
Very well could be. And there's that 100 monkey syndrome. Once 100 of them start doing
Yep.
it, then they all start doing it. So that's something interesting. And I remember reading several years ago, I was actually more open-minded to Planet X, it seems like 6 or 7 years ago than I have been lately. But I read an article on Yahoo News that said the star Betelgeuse had exploded, or something similar to that, and that in a few years everybody would see what looked like a second sun. And so my intuition said, oh, they're giving us this information now, so when people do start seeing this anomaly in the sky, they're going to be like, oh, well, it was just the star that blew up 1 billion years ago, and we're seeing that now. So I don't know, man. I mean, it's certainly fascinating times we live in, but as I've also brought up before, something else I'm starting to connect the dots with is the radiation levels have doubled since 2013, or not quite doubled, but pretty close to it out here in southern Texas. And I don't think it's because of the nuclear isotopes that are bouncing around in the atmosphere from the reactors and stuff. I think that it's the cosmic radiation. And maybe that could be because there's another sun or star that's getting close to proximity or closer to the Earth as well. So, I mean, these are things that are going through my mind that I wanted to let the audience know about that could possibly make some more connections there to this Planet X theory.
You know, one last thing that I want to say about this whole thing right now is the technology that we have today that we're not aware of is kind of like, remember when the stealth bomber came out and there was all this, these whistleblowers that were coming out saying we have this, we even had drawings and all this. And then all of a sudden it came out and said, oh, there it is. Yep, we had it all along. And so today in the public, we have these holograms that you're in a gymnasium and all of a sudden this whale comes out of the floor and splashes and it looks so real. Or dinosaurs that are running across the gymnasium. You just think it's for real. It looks, to our visual eyes, we think it's real. And so I wouldn't doubt if some of what we're seeing is some of this technology that is
Project Bluebeam.
Yes, exactly. And so look at all the other false flags that are going on the planet right now. And so at least you have to say to yourself, it's possible. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that's exactly because that would be a big undertaking.
It could be actually, really, with the technologies they've been talking about with Project Bluebeam for 20 years now, the satellite technology and all the stuff that's sprayed in the atmosphere, it wouldn't be that difficult to project 3D holographic images for people to think that it was either a UFO, a spaceship, or a second planet or another planet, I should say, that isn't supposed to be there.
Right. Okay. Just so, because some people, when you go too far, it's like, okay, I was with you up until you hit this point, and now I'm like, okay, that's just too far. So I always just kind of like, just be open-minded and just think about it and let your intuition, be your guide.
Well, and Joseph, do you know anybody on the planet that has been right 100% of the time?
No.
Gosh, I don't either. I mean, if I did, wouldn't that be amazing? He'd be my best friend. I'd ask him everything.
That's right. All right, so let's move on here. So you can see just with this picture here how the infrared is on the right, the ultraviolet, and as you move to the left there, and as you see the wave, the energy is increasing the faster that pulsation goes, and it goes into the gamma rays. Okay? So I really think that what has happened here is we are increasing in energy and vibration, and we're moving into these realms, and no longer do we just see the visible light. I think we're going to be able to see beyond what we've been able to see before, and that's why some of these things, like these planets and everything else, are becoming visible to us. All right. And so this gets into some history just for people that just need the facts, right? And so a lot of these things that I put in here are debatable. So don't quote me 100% because some of the people that were credited as inventing these things, it might be in Italy that this guy got credited when actually it happened in America or vice versa. So the point is that there is a history behind things, such as the microscope. It was invented somewhere around 1590, and you know we started seeing things like microorganisms, like fungal and like bacteria, viruses, which we didn't know they existed before that. I think the scientists assumed they were there, and then all of a sudden we developed a tool that we could measure and we could see. And so it's the same thing of what I'm talking about here today. Just because you can't see it, don't mean it doesn't exist. And so that leads us into the physical or the spiritual body. And of course, it's also known as a soul. Some people call it the soul. I think, this is my belief, I think you can live thousands of lives if you so choose. And for what purpose? I really think that it's really about experience. I used to think it was about expanding your growth and your consciousness, and I really don't think that at this point. At one level, that's the truth. It is like for the purpose of expansion and growth. But as you raise in vibration and understanding and awareness and consciousness, you realize that, wow, we are spiritual beings living out a human experience for the purpose of an experience. And so, let's see, that's how I say there, okay. The spiritual body, the higher self. And so, if you tune in to a higher aspect of yourself, I really believe we're multidimensional beings. And as we shift into this, what I'm talking about, third to fourth density, you're able to see things more. And so we have these variables, like we were talking about earlier, individual consciousness. Then there's the consciousness field that everybody's tuned into. There's what we call the God source of energy, if you will. And then that leads into the power of prayer. So people talk about spirituality. It's not the church that creates the miracle. It's the people combining their energies and their thoughts and their focus at one place at one time that creates that miracle. People don't realize how powerful of a co-creator we really are. And collectively, we're even more powerful. And hence, that goes back to the ants movie that you were talking about with the grasshoppers.
Right. And even the Bible, if you go back with the Holy Bible reference where, I don't know if it's Jesus that says this or one of the prophets, if there's two or more of you saying my name at the same time, I will be there with you. That makes me think of just that co-creation, like you say, but in a different translation kind of.
Yeah, so there's different context it's so funny, my eyes, we're talking about how you see things, you perceive things, and if I was to read the Bible 15, 20 years ago, and then I read it now, I have a whole other look at what these meanings really mean. And so when you have a priest or a preacher, and not taking away from anybody's religion or anything like that, but if that's your belief, that's your belief. That's where you are in your path or your truth. But if you have a three-dimensional interpreter of the Bible, a priest or preacher or whatever, interpreting what he's reading, that's what you're going to get. If you get somebody that's a higher vibrational being that reads it and says, well, this is what I get out of it, it's going to be a totally different understanding.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then we move into the emotional body. And of course, this is influenced through our emotions, can be from internal or external sources, that feeling of depression that you get. It determines how you feel in any given situation or moment. And so if you're feeling depressed, like right now, this minute, and you're just like, oh my God, I'm so depressed. That's an emotional feeling. You feel it. And so that can change in, like, you snap your fingers. Think of the best time you ever had with your best friend at wherever this was, and you start to laugh. It changes that emotional body. It changes your feeling about yourself, which raises your vibration and raises the cellular structure. Things are no longer shrinking and becoming diseased.
Right.
And so it can be altered just with a simple thought. And so you can see how these 5 aspects of what make humans human all interchange. And so you're seeing me talk about the physical, the emotional, the mental, and it all comes back. It's all related. It's all interchangeable. And here it is there. So the magnitude of our emotional body sets us apart from the rest of the animal kingdom. And so you'll see on YouTube, you'll see a cow that's ready to go to slaughter, and you'll see it crying. So I'm not saying that there's no emotion, or you can see that your loved one, like the love of your pet, when it's in some kind of anguish, you can see it. I'm not saying they're not emotional. Animals aren't, but I think the magnitude of human beings, I think that's what makes us human.
Let me jump in here real quick. I'm
Yeah.
glad that you brought that up because with many of the people that I've interviewed here at the Leak Project and that have been either abducted by extraterrestrials or they feel that they have been, or at least abducted by something that claims to be ETs, whether they were my labs, I don't know. But it's fascinating how many of them have so much emotion and sixth sense type abilities, and they often say they think that ETs interact with people to live through them and their emotions because they don't have that part that we do. And that's, in their opinion, what makes us stand out to them as well. So that could be what makes human hue. If you guys remember that interview we had the other day with Scott, that was pretty cool. He talked about the power of the hue, which is fun. But maybe that's what makes us unique versus anything, is our, not necessarily better. I'm not saying we are on a pedestal, but unique in the sense that our emotions are what makes us human.
So think about that. As you raise in vibration and you're up in, say, these high fourth density and fifth dimension above is all unconditional love. There's no fear, there's no doubt, there's no judgment, there's just being. So when they say just be, you're just the observer in your situation, including yourself. There is no emotion because you don't put a positive or negative charge or an emotion to whatever the situation is before you. And so if you're an ET and that's how you live your life by virtue of the vibration that you're at, if you drop down, which can be painful, and that's why a lot of these ETs don't want to come here. It's just so dense and so thick, and it's just heavy. Yes, I can see how and why they would do that. Because yes, we are emotional, and again, this goes back to what we've been taught, our perception of the world, and this could be from central Pennsylvania compared to India. Our perceptions of life are going to be completely different, and so we might be the same age, born on the same date, but because of where we live and because of the religions, because of the schools, because of the language, because of the culture, the perceptions are different from those two individual beings. But that still makes us, we're still human. We still have emotions. And so as you raise in the vibration, I think that's what really separates um, the species, the ETs, etc.
Now, emotions can also get us into a lot of trouble too when you look at somebody, either way, it's just amazing. And I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. So with that said, you got 95% of the DNA that we supposedly don't use, but what would happen, do you think, if we were able to unlock all those strands of DNA?
Well, a lot of people like to reference the Bible, whether it's real or not. I mean, there's a lot of good messages there. But if you just look at the man that not everybody, but there's a high population of people on the planet that are into Christianity. And so they talk about Jesus. And he walked on water, he could levitate, he could heal people, you know. So he said, you will do these things and greater things. And the reason I reference these types of things because people can get behind it. It's not my true belief in the whole Christianity thing. I don't think that he was coming here he was here as a teacher. I really think that he was giving us an example and showing us what we could possibly do. Look at me, you will do these things and greater things. You just have to believe in yourself. It's not about I'm your savior and I'm going to die on a cross for you. And so I apologize to people that are listening to this that are true Christians and they're deep in your faith and all that because I used to be there. But as I stepped out and opened up and jumped out of that box, my opinion has changed. And so I don't judge you for where you're at, so please don't judge me. But if we're going to talk about religion and just to help people, get behind these possibilities of raising your the abilities of the human form, if you would turn on 100%, a good depiction of that is Lucy, that movie. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
Oh, yeah, where she turns into pure energy.
Absolutely. And so you can see the progression as she evolves, if you will. Her DNA keeps getting more and more and more, 20%, then 25, then up, 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 and the more abilities that she has. And here again, it's showing you, it's depicting our truest and highest potential as humans.
Yeah, fascinating. And I wonder if when the sun changes because of its cycle, and obviously it's changed right now, unless the reason we see it the way that we do is because the atmosphere has been destroyed from chemtrails being sprayed, some type of terraforming. I've often wondered that too, because the chemtrails are obvious. You can just look up and you'll see them half the time you look in the skies. And I'm wondering if they cause so much damage to the atmosphere that now there's very little there, so it's a lot more extreme also. And that would also explain why the radiation levels have increased. And if it hasn't increased from the radioactive isotopes here on Earth, it would be from the cosmic radiation. So, or maybe it's a combination of all of the above, because like you said earlier, the movies and TV shows that seem to come out that people gawk at, sometimes down the road, those same things take place, just in a little bit of a different way. And if you remember that Superman, one of the more recent ones that came out, not Superman versus Batman, but the one prior to that, you've got these aliens that come down with superpowers and they try and terraform the planet for them. And it's just completely messing up the atmosphere. But luckily, Superman's able to stop it and everything goes back to normal and people are happy again. So, I mean, maybe they're already trying to terraform the planet. If you look into this whole reptilian ancient species that has supposedly been here just as long as we have or something, maybe this is their way to try and get rid of humans more so, or have less of us around so that they can come back out of the caverns. I don't know. I mean, this is all just speculation. What do you think about something like that possibility?
Well, I think that the not just humans, but every species on this planet, when you're trying to raise a vibration of a planet and everything that's on it, you can't do it all at once. Did you see what happened to those beings from another planet that came here and were exposed to the sun, and it turned on and turned them up to what Superman was born and raised with? So that's exactly what would happen to us. And so that's why it's happening subtly. But I think some of what the reason why, and of course it's a multifaceted reason why we're doing these chemtrails and stuff, but I think some of it's to block the raising of the vibration of humanity for the purpose of keeping us where we are, controlling us, and just like that grasshopper was saying that we were talking about earlier. It's to keep us in check, keep us in control, and so that's one more level of control to keep us from raising in vibration. We're going to get to a tipping point where it can't be helped. I mean, I think real soon, I really think that say the summer solstice coming up here is going to be a marker post in catapulting us further. Anytime there's something like the summer solstice, the fall equinox, and the whole way through, we reach these markers that you can't go back. And once you've reached that particular point, you raise in a particular frequency. And I really think that we're going to get something. I don't know what. I think it's going to catapult us into the fall. And I'm so interested. I'm so excited to see what's going to happen with this presidential thing coming up in November that I'm excited to be the observer.
Oh, yeah. The whole world's a stage indeed.
It is. Okay, so the emotional body here. So all illness, this is my perception, all illness or dis-ease or disease starts from the emotional body with no exceptions. It's the emotional. So how do you feel about yourself? Whether if someone else is judging you and they say like you're fat and you believe what they're saying, that's where your disease comes from. Or if you just believe that about yourself, because there are diseases or emotional diagnoses like anorexia, for instance, or bulimia. There's people have this conscious thought about themselves that they don't love themselves and they think that they're fat and they're not. And so just because of their belief, that's where their dis-ease comes from. And so if you change your thought of loving yourself unconditionally, your health will change for the better. And so one other thing that people don't talk about is not only is our DNA linked just with our own self, but you can see, well, you have your grandmother's eyes or you have your father's ears. It's not just physical. It's also on a vibrational conscious, energetic level. So whatever your mother and father and grandparents, whatever stuff or baggage that they had, whether they were in the war, if they haven't cleared up that baggage, guess who gets to take care of it? It's their kids and then their grandkids. And so a lot of people don't talk about that aspect of our DNA, but I really think that that is a part of it. I don't think it's just physical DNA that, oh, okay, we can have these physical attributes like we can levitate. I think it's more than that. And that's why I also think that it's not just our parents and grandparents. We are all interrelated, all interlinked. We're all in the human family. And so eventually we're going to find out. I don't know if it's going to be 5 years, 10 years, 100 years sometime down the road. We're going to find how true that statement is, that all are one. And so some of us are empathic with this emotional body. We feel the earth, and so whenever there's a storm about to hit, or a volcano going to erupt, or an earthquake, or something like that, we feel it. We also feel if I was to go to Gettysburg, as I'm driving there, I was going there like a few months ago. The closer I got this gut wrenching, like depressed feeling, and it's because of the low vibration that's there, because of the Civil War that was there. And so different places on Earth have a high vibration, and they also have a low vibration. And so Mother Earth, she's just like us human beings. Whenever there's a dis-ease somewhere, she has to shake it off. And so sometimes what happens is humans pick up some of that emotional baggage from other humans or the planet or other things, and we feel it. And we're like, why am I dealing with this depression? There's nothing going on in my life that I'm depressed. Well, you have to realize that it might not be yours. You just have to clear yourself, and there are ways to do that. And I guess I don't want to get into that too much tonight, maybe later. But I guess the point is that some of the things that you're feeling from the emotional body, they're not always yours.
That's interesting because I've heard of that hypothesis before. Somehow you I guess the frequency gets embedded in your DNA somehow from your ancestors, and that's maybe could explain sometimes when people have that intuition or that deja vu feeling, maybe that could possibly be why.
Absolutely. I think that we're going to find that everything is consciousness. Everything is like, if you knock on the table that you're sitting at right now, it's all vibration. It's everything that I've been showing you these pictures of. And it's at the atomic level, they're still vibrating. It might be so slow, and it's therefore in physicality, we're looking at it that it's dense and it's heavy, and it's just where it's vibrating at. And so everything, I really think that, and this is where it comes down to, everything is God. I mean everything that's created, like a TV, like a refrigerator, like anything and everything. Even though we've took our own consciousness or collective consciousness and built something, we use the energy or the vibration of the collective consciousness or the universal vibration, however you want to look at it. I really think that everything is energetic. Everything is connected. It's just, where does it vibrate? How do we look at it as observers? Because we're co-creators, and whatever when we put it in a box, we name it, we give it parameters. This is a refrigerator. And so now everybody collectively knows what a refrigerator is and it's made out of energy and vibration, if that makes sense.
It does. And consciousness could be just information in a sense, yet I think that there's something more to it. I feel that there's like a spark that maybe can't be explained, or I'm not able to explain because of the percentage of the brain that I'm using right now and the information that I have access to. Maybe it isn't explainable with the words that we have. I don't know, but it certainly is fascinating. So when you look at somebody's consciousness level, is it based upon their previous experiences, past lives, as well as where they are currently now? I don't know, but that could possibly explain some of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the energy body, each human body, it carries its own personal frequency. It's kind of like a fingerprint, and is made up of energy centers, which a lot of people know about, the chakras. And of course, there's 7 main ones that we talk about that's been taught over the millennium, but we got so many more than that. And let's see. I think each one is affected by the others. There's a biofeedback loop, or you know, each chakra is connected to a gland. And so, say the throat chakra, it's connected to the thyroid gland. And so, when a patient will come into me and their thyroid is off, I'll say, "Do you have problems speaking your truth?" And when you scan them, you can feel the heaviness of energy in their throat because they don't speak their truth. They hold things back. And so once you start to practice energy medicine along with traditional medicine, um, all of a sudden all this stuff comes together. You're putting these pieces to the puzzle together, and you're like, wow, it's all really starting to make sense now. And so, again, you can determine what's wrong with an individual just by looking at what chakra is represented and so on. And so, when there's a dis-ease, you usually it's an emotional, like I said earlier, it's an emotional component. And so, if you have an emotional component that, say, something you feel about yourself, or you don't speak your truth, you're not speaking up for yourself, and you feel, what's the word? You feel down on yourself, I guess. And so the disease moves into, say, that thyroid, and it causes problems. And so you can check like a TSH, and all of a sudden the TSH is up. Say it's like 50 or something, and it really should be below somewhere around 4. And so all of a sudden you can see the physical characteristics of this disease that stems from an emotional problem. So a lot of times, if you can get rid of an emotional problem, the dis-ease goes away. But most people don't. Anyway, so yeah, if you can get to that understanding, then you can start to heal yourself. And of course, I can't talk about a lot of this to my patients. I just suggest certain things, and I give them the choice, which most doctors they don't even know about this stuff, so they can't even talk on this level. And I'm not saying I'm better than anybody. I'm just saying that here's the information. How do you want to proceed? It makes a huge difference in caring for your patient.
Okay. Absolutely. I would certainly feel that it would, because when you go see a doctor and all they do is first, here's one thing too that I think's funny, and I'm sure you can agree with me on this. I don't know what you have to say about it. I like your opinion because you are a doctor. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier about how usually if you go to a doctor's appointment, it's usually like that prima donna. They're 15 minutes late, half an hour late. You'll be seen for 10 minutes and you're there for 2 hours. And I mean, I know that most doctors are extremely busy, but it just seems like with as much money and sometimes that they get for as little time as they spend, it'd be nice if they would really spend some serious time to get to know somebody. But it's not necessarily their fault. I feel that it's more of just the medical industrial complex that kind of force feeds that system to be that way, right?
Yeah, it's annoying to me that people are like that. I'm not. If my patients are there and they respect my time, I'm right in there to see them and get them in and out. And so that too busyness, that's all a bunch of crap. And yes, the industry has a lot to do with it. The reimbursements have changed because the insurance companies are running the world today. So, if you're working for a corporation that's expecting you to put out, I want you to see 7 or 8 people an hour rather than spending 15 minutes or 4 people an hour, then you can see that they're kind of tied to the system. On the other hand, if you see somebody rolling in with their Beamer like 2 or 3 hours late just because they wanted to sleep in, that's not respecting their patients. And so, I guess I've seen both ends of it, but in my practice, if you're there on time, you get seen. You're in and out, because I don't like when my patients are late either. I'm like, look, where are you at,
Right, exactly. And I just thought that was funny. I just wanted to bring it up because I know that you do have a a lot of patients and stuff. And I didn't think you would, one of the things that's neat about what you do is you actually try and get to the solution. You're not just writing prescriptions and saying, okay, well, you have this side effect from this prescription, so you need to take these 3 to offset that. But then there might be a few more you have to take down the road.
Right. And so what I've had to learn is I can't force any of this kind of stuff down anybody's throat. Like I'll have a patient come in and I'll say, okay, well, your blood work shows that you have high cholesterol. So, if you just exercise and you diet and, you eat right, this will go away. And some of the patients will just say, look, doc, I'm not going to do any of that stuff. Just give me the pill. And I have to respect that. Some people just want the pill. They don't care about the rest. And whether they're
How
lazy,
many?
Basically
Out of
that's
10.
judgment.
Sorry to interrupt, but like from out of a percentage-wise, Joseph, how many would you say would rather have the pill than actually exercise?
Oh, a lot. Like a lot of them say they want to do the natural way, but they don't want to put the effort in. And it's difficult, and I see it because I go to the store now and I'm like, God, all these GMO foods, and there's this organic aisle that I go to and I purchase. Now, don't get me wrong, I go off the reservation sometimes too, and I eat things I shouldn't be eating, but I try pretty hard to I don't even want to say that because try is just an excuse. If I truly wanted to do it, I would do it. So I allow myself to have some of these like, I don't know, there was a birthday party the other day and I had some Doritos. Like typically I don't eat anything processed because it's terrible for you. But
Right.
You know what? I grew up, having some Doritos once in a while before I learned all this, and I love the taste of them. So you know what? I eat them and then I don't feel guilty. I'm not going to sit there and beat myself up over them.
How'd you feel the next day?
Well, it wasn't even a day. It was like an hour later. I'm like, oh, why'd I eat that? I feel crap.
Right. You're paying for it, man, for sure.
Yeah. So
I wonder if 20 years ago, though, they probably weren't, they certainly weren't good for you, but 25, 30 years ago,
Right.
they probably weren't as genetically enhanced.
Right. No, exactly. And so you almost have to be on your guard all the time nowadays because of what's going on out there. On so many levels, we're hit with these GMOs, with the chemtrails, with the fluoride, with on and on and on and on and on. And you're just like, it's almost like you just to live on this planet right now. I mean, there's so much that you got to try to control for. Unless you're living off the grid, and even if you're off the grid, the chemtrails come down, they poison the water, blah 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 blah. It's really difficult and it's exhausting. So you almost have to just get away from it, do it the best you can, and thought becomes reality. You know what? If you say every day you're healthy and none of this stuff can touch me because I'm raising in vibration, it can't touch me anyway, then that's the trick. And so far it's worked for me. I don't beat myself up over going out and eating some Doritos or a soda once in a while. But for the most part, I try to eat and respect my body, because if you look at it as though it's a temple and you want to stay healthy, then you want to respect it and eat naturally occurring things from the planet. And so this will get into a discussion about people saying, oh, well, you shouldn't eat beef and you shouldn't. Well, we're in human form and we have to eat something. So who values that piece of lettuce over the beef that we're eating? If you truly sit and just think about that for a second, who's judging that plant there's life, if I kill it to eat it, is less than that cow that I just ate that will provide for hundreds of people? Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, because as silly as this sounds to some people, the plants do have some type of consciousness. They've done experiments on like actually going out and clipping certain plants or causing damage to a plant, and then when that same person was within a certain proximity of it, they can pick up certain vibrational frequencies or something. You probably know about this experiment better than I do. I'm just hitting on the outskirts of it.
No, absolutely. In fact, if you get on YouTube, you'll find all kind of experiments. They've clipped, they went into the woods and they connected it to a tree and they hooked it to a synthesizer, and you can hear the music that's playing through the trees. And it's just amazing. It's like, oh my gosh. They've also have like just the thought of burning, not even burning it, but just taking a match. I'm going to burn you. With that thought and that intent, it has a reaction. The leaves will pull in on themselves, et cetera, et cetera. There's all kind of experiments out there. And so, yes, there's consciousness. Everything is consciousness. And that's what I was saying earlier is, when people get so stuck on, well, we're in human form right now, what are you going to eat? We have to eat. We're not all sun gazers right now that can just take in the energy. But I think that's where we're going. And as we transition and we change over millennium, I don't know if it's going to take 100 years to do that, but for right now, you got to do what you can do. And so try to eat as high vibrational foods as you possibly can. That are natural, naturally occurring. If you are going to eat beef, eat something that you've raised and you've loved and taken care of its entire existence. And for that, they're giving their life and sustenance to you. And so when I lived in New Mexico, I went and driving by these feedlots where these poor animals were, you could just feel the low density of it. They were in fear. They were going to a slaughterhouse. And as you eat it, this is part of the DNA we were talking about before. You are what you eat. So if you're eating fearful beef, guess what? You're causing a dis-ease in your body because of the low vibration of what you're eating.
It's interesting you bring that up because the synchronicities that are going through my mind right now with what you're discussing, these same things were going through my thought process just a couple of days ago about what you eat. If you're always eating something that, like factory raised food, like you say, these cows that go through the slaughterhouses and they're in fear their majority of their life. And so when you do have an opportunity to eat healthier, and if you have extra money to go out and buy the food that is not genetically modified, if you're going to eat eggs, try and get the cage-free stuff that's really organic. But then even the cage-free eggs, if you go and read what the definition is of cage-free, they only need to be outside of the cage for an hour a day, and it doesn't need to be that big of an area. So if you can grow the crops yourself and raise the animals yourself, then you're going to know a lot more what it's like if you do take that animal's life to eat its substance, and it might turn you into a vegetarian in the process. And that's one thing that's important too. I was watching a clip yesterday about this 30-second clip that somebody put on the Leak Project Facebook page, where these people were working in a chicken house, I guess you can call it, where these little tiny baby chicks were born, and they're throwing them in these plastic bags, the male ones, because they had no use for them. So they're just born, they throw them in a plastic bag, hundreds of them, and hundreds in each bag. They just close the bag up, they suffocate and die. I mean, can you imagine what it would be like to have to go through that? Talk about hell on earth. Jeez, I mean, just put your perspective for 1 second. Imagine what it'd be like to get thrown into a plastic bag at birth and then suffocate to death. It's just, find a more humane way to do things, folks, that have these factory farms out there. I mean, think about it for a second. Come on.
Right. And so if you do have to eat like that, because you mentioned the monetary part of it, I mean, if you don't have the money, then what you can do as a powerful co-creator, if you believe in yourself, is that's why you see people praying at a dinner table. You pray for what you've got. You raise the vibration of what you're about to consume. And as you raise that vibration, then you're consuming it. If you even want to look at it, okay, I'm dispelling any fear or anything that's lower vibrational before I consume it into my body. I'm going to raise the vibration. And so whether you believe it or not, I mean, that's what it comes down to. Thought becomes reality. It becomes belief. And so once you start to get behind the fact that, wow, okay, well, if I can do energy healing on somebody and I can relieve their pain or whatever's going on with them and they feel better afterwards, then why can't I pray over my food and raise the vibration of it and get rid of anything that's lower vibrational or negative? And so I'm trying to pull all of this together in day-to-day life, not just about medicine. It's all interrelated.
Right.
All right. So the energy body, and I'm just going to go through a couple things here, just so later on in the presentation we can maybe discuss it. But of course, Albert Einstein, he theorized E equals mc squared, E representing energy, m representing mass, and c squared representing the square of the speed of light. And then this other doctor, Duncan, he weighed his patients just prior to death and after death, and he concluded that the soul weighs 21 grams. So there must be some kind of mass to, the soul, the energy vibration. And then this Russian scientist, Semyon Kurlin, he began that electrophotography research in 1940. And of course, he started taking pictures of a leaf, for instance, and it showed an auric field around it, an energy field. And so he would cut the leaf in half, take the picture, and the auric field still showed the energetic template was a whole leaf rather than a half of a leaf. So that suggests that from a higher vibration or a higher dimension, there's a template that comes down, that's neck down from energy down to physicality as a full leaf rather than the half that we're physically seeing, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. The Kirlian photography is pretty cool. It also can pick up aura fields, different colors.
Yes. And so, I always wondered, like, is it just the nerve endings that the people are feeling whenever they have an amputee? Because they would come into my office and they would tell me their toe was burning and they didn't have a leg, their lower leg below their knee. And I'm like, wow, that's really interesting that the brain would perceive that when it's really not a physical thing for the nerves. I really think it's the phantom feeling of loss with the physical body of the physicality, but yet the energetic template is still there. That's my personal opinion on it. And so, yeah, I don't want to get into this too much. It talks about, like, taking a picture of an apple, cutting it up into 50 pieces, taking the picture of a piece of that 50, and then the whole piece the whole apple is still there. And so it talks about, the whole is in all the parts, the part is in all the whole. And so it's this holographic universe that we live in. And so if you have a piece of something, you can create a whole. And so just like with what we find in nature within our DNA makeup, you can take a kidney cell and produce a liver, for instance. All the DNA, all the information is there. And so you're thinking in a limited way, like, well, okay, we can create a kidney. No, you can create the whole body. And so the more we do research on the DNA and other things, we're going to find all this to be true.
Right. Do you remember the movie The Fifth Element?
Yes.
Where they take that just little piece of bone and flesh and they were able to recreate the entire sentient being?
Yes. And
Kinda
so,
like that.
I mean, it just, again, they show you in the movies, like everything that's really out there. It seems like science fiction, but it's just real. And so this goes back to the energy body. I mean, did you ever look in a mirror and it's like, okay, there's a reflection there? To me, I hadn't thought about it till, like, I don't know, a couple years ago. I'm like, that's still weird to me that my face is back there just because there's a reflection. Like, it's still like other things that made was a mind bender for me. It's like, okay, whoever invented recording the voice onto a piece of wax, like, first of all, okay, you can get the concept of, oh, I'd like to record this. All right, well, I'm going to develop this device that the voice is going to go on this piece of wax, and it's going to work. And I'll put a needle on it, and it'll play it back. To me, that is just mind-bending.
Right. So what happens if you don't have a reflection?
You must have shifted into another dimension, I guess. I don't.
It's a vampire.
Exactly. All right, so defining the known universe. This consists of billions of galaxies. Of course, the invention of the optical telescope, we'll get into that. And the known universe is made up of energy. It's continually in expansion, has many dimensions. The universe works in a cyclical manner, and it's estimated to be 13.7 billion years old. And so it is established that there are over 100 billion galaxies in the visible universe. This is what we can see, and this goes back to what we said earlier. It's like, okay, we have tools now that we can see things that are not out there, but just because we can't see it don't mean it doesn't exist, right? And so this goes back to the history. In 1609, Galileo was credited with the invention of the first telescope. He was observing mountains and valleys on Venus. Of course, we've grown leaps and bounds since 400 years ago. It's only been 400 years, and now we have, like, a Hubble telescope that can see out several billion light years since 1990. To me, that's like mind-bending.
Right.
And so energy...
Let me jump
Go
in
ahead.
real quick. Do you feel that technology will advance in a fashion where the formula, it increases like it has the past 100 years, where 100 years from now would be more like 10,000 years of technology. If you look
Yes,
at, okay.
absolutely. It's exponential. And so, yeah. And I really think that that's what's going to be happening here within the near future, within the next, say, couple of years. There's going to be these inventions that have been shelved, and now we're going to be aware of them. Because here's the thing, what people don't realize is the old guys, we only live a certain amount of time on this planet. Yeah, there's cloning and all this other kind of stuff, but through attrition, through people dying off, and these young souls that are coming in right now with these higher vibrations, they're not going to have it. They're going to be like, no, we ain't doing it the old way. That's old-fashioned. It's antiquated. This is the new wave. This is what we're going to do from here on out. We're the leaders. And so I really think that within the next few years, they just have to change. And if we wait long enough, they're definitely going to change. So anyway, all things are made up of energy, and therefore all things are connected. All are one. Our solar system is 4.5 billion years old. That's the solar system. All right. The universe is continually expanding. Because of this, continually we're getting further and further away from the other galaxies, so to speak. This puts more time and distance between us. We perceive time in a linear fashion, like a straight line. And it's very difficult for humanity to comprehend this, of course. I mean, at billions of light years, I mean, that's pretty hard to wrap your head around. Of course, we perceive life in the third dimension. This is what we were talking about earlier. But if you add time, that becomes fourth dimensional. The rules change in each dimension. And so this is what I was talking about before. If you put a parameter as a co-creator, this is what it means to be in third density. It's dense, it's thick, and you can't reach up to fourth density unless you do this. If you lighten your physicality, if you work on your vibration by, like what we were talking about before, eating higher quality foods, you can meditate. There's all kinds of things that you can do. And as you do this, by virtue of doing this, your body becomes lighter. Your DNA responds to it. And all of a sudden, you start shifting and seeing things that you never saw before. And so the universe works in cycles. I don't want to get into all this kind of stuff because we'll be here all night. Again, the Earth, Mother Earth, she's a living, breathing being just like us. She's sentient. And again, we're born on this planet, so as above, so below. And so I look at us as these little cells on this planet. So we could be cancer cells or we could be the white blood cells. Right now, I think we're the cancer cells. We're killing this planet. And so eventually she's going to come in there, and the white blood cells, she's going to be shaking us off. She's going to be creating volcanoes, earthquakes, whatever it takes, so she can raise in the vibrations that are coming from our sun. I think that this is a time when life on this planet is going to change. And so we are either along for the ride or we get shaken off. So, let's see. Oh, yeah, the Schumann resonance. And so if you ever looked at the most recent, I'd suggest patients or people look into that right now. Like, it's like, what was it 10 years ago and what is it today? And we're connected to this planet. And so whatever frequency the planet is vibrating at, we have to attune to, or we just can't exist. We drop body.
Right.
And so, for thousands of years, human beings, we've been relying on horse and buggy, primitive tools, and look what in 100 years, just 100 years. So how did this occur? Of course, some claim it's alien intervention. Today's magic is tomorrow's science. DNA was discovered in 1869. Let's see.
It's interesting. Yeah, I want to jump into that sheep cloning thing from 96 because there's a lot of information out there that shows it could have possibly been all the way back when in the 40s and 50s when they actually cloned the first animals. So I wonder if there's really people today that have been cloned. And I don't want to go as far as like that movie The Sixth Day by that Arnold Schwarzenegger was in, where they've got plug-and-play bodies where you die. Okay, we'll just replug you into this body. Your consciousness will be downloaded, and bang, voila, there you are. Do Do you think that they've got cloned people, or maybe some of those guys in Hollywood and stuff? They've got some type of weird cloning stuff going on.
Well, this one doctor, he states, Zavos, he claimed that he could do it in 2009. So here it is, 2016. I mean, I don't know if he could or couldn't, but he was making a claim. So look how far we've come from 96 to 2009 to here we are in 2016. The technologies we were talking about is just exponential. Every year it's more and more and more. And, you know, you can't keep up with all the computers and the iPads and the iPhones and everything, you know? I mean, and so the reason I'm bringing up the history is look how far we've come from just a few hundred years, like even 100 years ago.
And maybe something big would happen, though, that could cause the technology aspect of things for most people to kind of go on a digression aspect. Because, like you said, we're kind of taking right now a lot more than we're given, at least overall, as far as the archetype goes towards the planet. And if there's a war, if there's some type of EMP, nuclear weapon, satellites fall from a giant solar flare, I mean, multiple scenarios I can think of here, then that could push us back 100 years, 1,000 years, whatever, and then people are going to have to start over.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, aside from technology, because there's two schools of thought. One is let's go the technological advancement road. The other is let's go complete consciousness road, which increases the DNA, which increases the brain power. And so you see the cyborg on one side, you see the human being that is 100% using 100% of the brain and the DNA. What would that look like? Either one of those. And I think those that are in fear of dropping body and that are in a lower vibration that don't want to change who they are on the path of the cyborg. They want to enhance themselves, whether it be physical, genetics, but some of the things that I really think that you have to be out of vibration to reach and to turn on some of these, some of this DNA. And so just by virtue of what's going on in the world right now, I think we're going to be seeing it over in the next couple of years. And so this goes back here again with the first flight, you know, I mean, 1903, I mean, it's just mind-bending to me that how far we've come. Just in such, I mean, we've got Bluetooth, holograms, cell phones, microwave, Kevlar, supercomputers, you know, we got this HARP technology, lasers, rockets, I mean, on and on and on. And so the question is, did we gain so much so quick from our own human ingenuity, or did we get help from someone or something else? And so all these whistleblowers are coming out saying that the technology came from, you know, breaking down a UFO and using the technology.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's Philip Corso, there's Bob Dean. You know, I interviewed Bob Dean. I talked to him in Nevada one time. I mean, he's an awesome guy. I mean, he had like over top secret clearance. As he says, we are not alone. We've never been alone.
I got to get him on the show. How's he doing?
Oh, he would be amazing, but I don't know if you can get him on your show, that would be awesome. But I don't know that he's doing interviews anymore. I mean, you know what? If you can pull some strings and get him on, that would be awesome. I love him. So the last question with the technology is, what if out of those billions of galaxies, and again, we can see out 100 billion light years, and just to put it into perspective, you know, we look at light, or we look at, how should I say this? Let's just look at it in seconds. And I have it right here. To put it into perspective, the Earth is pretty big. I mean, when I fly around the country here, in the other countries, I'm just like, God, this planet is so big, but yet it seems so small compared to the other planets. But if you look at it as the speed of light, light would travel around the Earth at 7 times in like a snap of the finger, a second. So if you put that in a linear way, like a straight line, so how do you calculate that to go out there 1 year, then 1 billion, then several billion light years? How far out are we seeing? Is that ridiculous or what?
Oh, yeah.
So look where we've come in 100 years. That's, you know, it's amazing to me. And so I always say at the end, it's one of those things. Is what if some beings came from somewhere out there, those hundreds of billions of light years, and they were just 1,000 years of technology in advance than us. Not 100. Look where we've come in 100 years. What would 1,000 look like? Wouldn't they look like gods to us? Right? And so let's see. We get into the religion thing, which I'm not going to get into here tonight. We talk about Darwinism, creationism, the Big Bang, petroglyphs, mainstream archaeologists, the fossil records, the missing link. All this has to. The Big Bang theory, petroglyphs. Here we go. These are my pictures that I took in New Mexico. And so look at this elongated head and this little body.
What part of New Mexico is that?
Oh, geez. It's, you know what? I'll have to get you the information.
No problem.
It was
Okay.
somewhere in central New Mexico. I think I was driving up from White Sands, and it was just this pull off, and all of a sudden these petroglyphs, and everybody's just walking all over them, and there's no. There's nobody there to say don't do that, don't write on this rock, don't. I'm just looking at these petroglyphs going, holy smokes. Here's that. What's this thing here? It looks like, if you were looking from the ground up, it looks like it might be, I don't know, a UFO with lights. I don't know. This was from over 2,000 years ago is what they say that's how old the petroglyphs are. And look at this. It looks like a spacecraft on the second rock in the middle there. And then on the right, it looks like this being with an antenna coming out of its head.
Yeah, it does. You know, if you go to Utah, there's places out way, way deep into the canyon lands where they've got petroglyphs that are over 8,000 years old.
Wow.
And these things don't even have arms. I mean, they've got like these weird-looking ghost heads and these bodies with no arms or legs. It's very interesting.
Right. And so all over the world you see this. And so it's not just in America. There's so many things that it's like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't belong there. How did that get there? If our current history and our current science and all this is correct, then how did that get there? Oh, it's a mystery. No, it's not a mystery. If we had the truth, it wouldn't be a mystery. It's just like this missing link here. You look at the genetics that we have, and we're going along, Neanderthal, there's a missing link between there and human. And so what happened during that time? So there's two schools of thought. This is mind-provoking here for the listeners. Is it that E.T. came down here and manipulated our DNA like the Anunnaki, like a lot of people say? Or was there an event that happens every so often where these energies surge in, and all of a sudden you raise in a vibration from, like third density up to fourth density or even higher?
Wow,
That's what I would. So, we look at the ice core samples. We look at, when I was in the Grand Canyon, looking at all the layers of all the years, I'm just sitting there and I just kind of got in this meditative state, and I'm like, these are thousands and millions of years of layers and layers and change. The only constant in the universe is change. And so every so often you have this leap in evolution. And so right here it depicts it. Right there is perfect, this missing link. And so again, is it manipulation from ETs, or was there this huge energetic vibration that comes in and just bam, it affects the DNA and turns things on and turns things up, and all of a sudden, poof, there it is.
I think that if you look at this transhuman movement that's really being pushed right now, there's this influence in Hollywood and with the big corporations and industries that do research of enhancing human with robotics and different type of computer technology, chip implants, etc. And as amazing as that stuff could be, and I guess evolve people in certain ways, it's probably going to have a lot of limitations and devolve them at the same time in other aspects. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a way that you can hook a chip up to your brain that will reconnect to a supercomputer that can calculate a trillion, quadrillion floating points per second with, calculating every algorithm possible to connect you closer to source or your spirit. Yet that feels like maybe a cheating aspect. I don't know, man. I mean, what's your thought on being able to maybe improve your ability telepathically, these different senses that most people don't normally have access to just because they've been suppressed for so many generations, that if you could turn on a switch and then now you can read somebody's mind, you can teleport, you can withstand 1,000-degree temperatures, sub 100 below.
Well, I think it's the age-old question. Do we play God and create the technology to do something that is a natural ability over time, or as we evolve and as we move forward? I mean, I think sometimes we leap too far forward without thinking of what the consequences are. And so we're like these teenagers in a sandbox, and we're playing with well, maybe we're 5-year-olds and we're playing with quarter sticks or M80s, and we don't know what the ramifications are. So we just do it. But the problem is, it doesn't just affect us, it affects everybody else. Like I was saying on the last show, is I really think that the spacecraft that crashed in the 40s, they came here because we set off a nuclear bomb and it reverberated out in other dimensions. And so it doesn't, energetically, it doesn't just affect us. And so that's whenever, the old non-interference goes away. Whenever it starts to potentially threaten other lifestyles and civilizations, that's when it's like, okay, we can't have this. It's the teenagers need to be put on a timeout.
Right. Well, that was the theory on the new X-Files episodes that came out. They did a 6-part series this year. I thought was pretty good. And they basically said the UFOs started coming around New Mexico when they started doing all those nuclear experiments. I'll bet you many people haven't even heard of Project Gas Buggy, but that's out there, I guess, about 100 miles approximately, not even quite that far south of Dulce, New Mexico, where they actually did nuclear underground explosions to make this weird experiment for commerce or something like that, or something just retarded. Like, yeah, well, let's go put a couple nukes underneath that by that fault line there, and then we won't have to spend as much time digging. I mean, just retarded. Look it up. It's called Project Gas Buggy. So, and then I talked to a guest the other day named Scott Lemaire, I think is his last name. Real nice guy. And he thinks that these ETs will actually go to certain missile silos if there is some type of malfunction, or if there's getting a real possibility if they're going to push that button for nuclear war, because attention, that these UFOs go over these nuclear silos and just turn it off. And I've read previous stories about that happening, not because of the official story was there was some type of malfunction or they just decided to show up. There wasn't really a reason behind it. But then that would make more sense. Like if they're kind of making sure to keep the peace and not allow nuclear annihilation on the planet, maybe they're kind of keeping track, and then if they need to intervene, they will.
Yeah, I think that there's many levels of various ETs in various dimensions that are coming and going here with their own agenda. And so we could go off on all kind of different avenues with that. So I would tend to agree with what you said, exactly. And so some of them are here to just nurture us, and some are here just to observe, and that's it. Others here don't have our best interest in mind, are here to manipulate and control, and their service to self rather than service to others. And so that, if you can get behind that understanding, you can see why the world is the way it is right now. There's a hodgepodge of all this going on at one time, and it's because we're in a transition right now. And I really believe that we're in this, some people calling it the ascension process, but we're raising in vibration subtly and slowly on one hand, but if because we go by time here, which is a linear way of looking at things, you could say that, well, it's subtle, it's slow, but if you looked at it in the grand scheme of things, we've been doing it in a few years, which if you look at, the existence of humanity, thousands of years, just a couple years is not all that long at all. And so, I this is what we're just talking about right now is the angels versus the star people. I mean, there's texts all over the world in religious texts. There's cave paintings. Some people can get behind the fact that, oh, well, they're just angels. Well, think about what you're saying there. Are they indigenous to the planet? No. Okay. Well, then they are extraterrestrial. And therefore, angels are extraterrestrial also. And people can't get behind the labeling and as long as it's within my religion, then I'm safe. It's not demonic or it's not the devil's work. And these star people are the devil's work. And the devil's trying to trick me and all this other stuff that you've been taught. And again, it comes down to that priest or preacher that didn't know any better at the time, because that's the fear and that's the vibration that particular person was at. And not only that, but it's the individual person. And I don't want to pick on just the priests or the preachers. It's the individual person that reads it. And if they're in fear and they read it, they perceive it a different way. And I'm not trying to make fun of people either, because you know what? I used to be that person. I used to be there. And as I raised in vibration, I stepped out of it. And so there is no judgment here. It's just where you are on your path of truth seeking. And so I said at the beginning of the show I wanted the truth, and that's exactly what I got. And I still haven't gotten, like next month, I'll probably be in a different awareness than I am now, and I'll have to change my belief system. But it starts with being open-minded to the possibilities. And when you start putting the pieces to the puzzle, like we're talking about here with the star people that are depicted in ancient texts and drawings on walls and stones, and I showed you some pictures, it as long as you're open-minded, you'll get, I don't want to say you'll get to the truth, because every minute, every second, the way we perceive time, you're in your own truth. But if you're constantly seeking and open-minded, you'll find more that's out there. And that's the best way I can put it.
Right. It's interesting you bring that up, too, because I'm a big fan of Franz Barden, and he wrote 4 books, and he's not around anymore. I think he passed away back in the 40s or 50s, but he wrote a book called Initiation into Hermetics, which talks about how to use different parts of the mind and how to actually practice that part of the mind to reach that ability. He doesn't get into dogmatic practices like, okay, you need to have an altar, and at 11:37 on the 4th of July, when there's a crescent moon, you need to take this wand and sway it over there to the left and call out to the god Isis or something like that, but actually how to clear the mind and then learn how to focus on certain thoughts, how to transfer consciousness. And he gets really, really deep. But if you took maybe 5,000 books of occult knowledge, hidden knowledge on how to do certain things, with all of the extra fluff that's in the majority of the books, if you compiled all the true data together, I would say it could be equivalent to this one book if you really want to learn how to do different things with the mind. And he specifically states, you can read this book as many times as you want, and if you're not ready to go to that next level, then it's just going to be a book. You really have to physically, mentally, and spiritually evolve in order for it to take effect, or otherwise it doesn't really matter anything more than just like picking up a magazine or something. So that's just kind of going in conjunction with what you're saying.
Yeah, and so that leads us to the next thing, which is about channelers. And so a lot of people are freaked out and they're like, oh, that's the devil taking over a person. And in fact, a lot of people are afraid of hypnotherapy because they're afraid that I'm going to take over their mind and make them do something that they normally wouldn't do.
Dentists and doctors do that a lot without people knowing, huh?
Oh, yeah, all the time. No. The channelers, I just want to just put one thing out there, just one. Out of all the books and the Bible and all this kind of stuff, the 10 Commandments, what I learned in Catholicism is that Moses went onto the mountain there and he wrote down the 10 Commandments, right, in stone. And so where did he get that information? Was he physically from this planet? Was he physically here? Did Moses see him? And all the other prophets that wrote books down that made it to the Bible, and some of them didn't make it to the Bible. Where did this information come from? These were all channelers. But people don't want to get behind it because it's not religious. It's like, oh, well, no, no, no. He wasn't doing the devil's work. It was the Holy Spirit. But just think about it. If a human man goes up on a mountain and he's talking to God, which God isn't terrestrial, so he's an extraterrestrial. He's not from the planet, right?
Well, isn't there a place in the Bible? I don't know if this is when he gets the Ten Commandments, but there's a part that says he's on one of the mountains or close to the tops of one of the mountains, and God is actually there, but he can't look at God because God is so perfect that it would essentially kill him.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that passage or parable is from, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But I know there was a burning bush, and so was God like presenting himself as an energetic wave around this bush? Or do you know what I'm saying? It's like the information that's coming through, could it be a higher technology from, someone, an extraterrestrial that's 1,000 years of advancement pretending they're gods just to influence us in a way that's within their structure and their agenda? Do you know what I'm saying?
I do, and while you were pulling that up, I was just trying to find that reference so I could say it here on air. The only one that I found out first was, but he said, "You cannot see my face, for no one may see me and live."
Oh, I see. I've never heard that.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. I thought that was quite interesting, but I know that there's different verses and stuff that are close to that also. Do you believe? Is that kind of where you want to close out tonight, where if you believe in something, therefore it is real in a sense? I mean, kind of. I mean, obviously, if you believe that if you walk out in front of a semi-truck and you're going to go right through it, you're going to have some serious belief for that to work. That's most likely not. You're probably going to get hit and die. But where do you go with that as far as how powerful belief actually is?
Well, it's thought becomes reality, and if you're not open-minded to it, you're not going to believe it anyway, even if you see it. But this goes back to where I was at, and you showed the Phoenix Lights, I believe, the last time, didn't you?
Oh yeah, those were awesome. That's your version of the Phoenix Lights.
Exactly. And so this is, we talked about the truth, and I'm just going to go down a couple of these slides here real quick till we get to the end, and then finding out the truth. It's just like finding out that Santa Claus doesn't exist anymore. It's like my mom wants me to go back to religion. She still, to this day, wants me to go back to the Catholic faith. It's the one true faith and all this other stuff she tells me all the time. But I told her it's like me going back and believing in Santa Claus once you find out he doesn't exist. I can't. It's as simple as that. So I'm just going to go through here. The light force is dark. This is what I think we're heading for right there. Homo luminous. I really think that missing link, I think that the energies that are coming through right now, I think they're raising our vibration. I think we're shifting from a third density to a fourth density being. I think that the spectrum of light that we can see now, we're going to be able to see more of. That leads us to these planets that different guests that you've had on are now picking up on cameras, and everybody's saying, oh, it's Nibiru, it's this, it's that. It could be. I'm not saying it's not, but was it there before and we just couldn't see it because we weren't at the vibration to be able to acknowledge it? And the people, there's still people that don't believe even in that. And I think that some of it has to do with fear. If they're obviously afraid that the end is going to be near and they're going to drop body and they don't believe that we live forever and have thousands of lifetimes, if they're in the mindset that we have to go to heaven or hell, that's still in a fear-based mode, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I really think that out of everything we talked about, I know I skipped through a lot of stuff, that there were some kind of cool things that pulled it all together, but to bring it to the present day, right here, right now, I think it's about vibration. I think it's about energy. I think that we're ready for this shift that a lot of people are talking about, and we're in this ascension process. But some people think it's going to be a one-day click, bam, we're done. I think it's more subtle than that. I think that if that happens, as we talked about earlier, we're receivers and transmitters. And so we have to be subtly upgraded, upgraded, upgraded. And if we got it all at one time, it would just obliterate our physicality and we'd drop body. And so what would it be like to turn on the 100% of the brain, the 100% of the DNA subtly and be fully, full-on consciously aware in physical body? Because, of course, if you drop body, if you pull that spirit essence outside of yourself, you know everything. There's no limitations. You're aware. You're aware of everything. And so one of the things we didn't talk about is, which I think we talked about last time, is I think that we are also in an illusion. I think this is all a hologram that we're in, and we've self-imposed some forgetfulness, amnesia, so to speak, so that we basically, if I came here and I knew that I was a godlike being, do you think I'd want to stay here? Heck no, it's too dense. It's like I could be flying off to the cosmos somewhere.
Right.
So you limit, you self-impose this limitation on yourself to play the game, so to speak. So you, for the experience, that's it. We're all here. And once the curtains are pulled, you might be playing the bad guy or the good guy, and, at the end of the movie, you're all friends. I really think that that's what this all comes down to.
Well, that would certainly be nice. And there's the one side of the coin that people say, why are we born into this world where we don't have any memory? That's insane. We should be able to remember our previous lives, where we came from, because we'll be able to advance that much more. Some people look at this planet like a prison planet, yet maybe it's just this very enhanced virtual reality experiment where we're all infinite beings, and in order to kind of just do something a little bit different, this is a form of entertainment for us at the very top levels. However, when you look at some of the wicked stuff that goes on in places where people aren't as lucky, then you think, man, this is pretty wicked as well. So hopefully the game will continue to change and people will become more aware of their surroundings, where they come from, and the vibrations will increase to a higher level where, people will be more compatible with others. I certainly feel we should all have the right to think for ourselves, do what we want, when we want, where we want, as long as we're not hurting somebody else. And whatever our path is, if it's our true purpose, our true will, I feel that that would be in balance with everything else, and you wouldn't cause pain and suffering to other people. But because of this matrix per se, or this experiment that we're in, maybe the coders wrote something a little bit wrong, and now it's trying to correct itself. But in order for that to happen, it's going to take a lot of opportunities, I guess is the nicest way to put it. So it's fascinating, though, isn't it? I mean, what we're seeing every single day, whether it be Planet X or this new invention that comes out, where it seems like every single day is Christmas. Talk about Santa Claus, man. I mean, we're certainly living in awesome times.
No, absolutely. And I can get behind everything that you were saying. And so, yeah, there are some less fortunate beings out there, but if we are infinite beings and this is a predestined plan that we've came here to play out a part for the purpose of an experience, as soon as we drop body, we're back to the spirit essence of ourselves. And so that, you're not a victim. That is what is comforting to me, is that there are people that are in these particular impoverished regions of the world, but they've done that to themselves for the purpose of the experience and for them to teach other people lessons, if you will, or to be that opposition. Because, without opposition, there's no growth. And so, I really think that part of the game is that we've self-imposed this amnesia on many levels. And one of which is, okay, I'm going to self-impose it to such a degree that I forget everything and I have to work myself back to source. That's the game. And so even if I step out of my body, that piece of consciousness has to reincarnate until I keep going up for the purpose of an experience. And so when you know that you're not a victim here, you've actually, your predestined plan was planned by you. You accepted and said, okay, let's do this. I want to play the bad guy this time, or I want to be in poverty this time. What is it like? I can't understand why these people are they're complaining because they don't have food or water. I'm going to go live that experience and see what it's like. Because as you say, in the higher dimensions where there's no fear or doubt or judgment, there's nothing. It's just observation. When you stepped into humanity, you have all these emotions. All of a sudden, you feel it all. You're like, oh my gosh, what did I do to myself? And so you don't know it until you step back out of the body. I mean, what a game.
Man, I got to tell you, that last comment you just made there was a priceless diamond. I mean, that was just a great piece of information. I really like that. At that higher level, you don't have the emotions. So it's just like this. It just is. And then, yeah, like, wow, man, that was really powerful, Joseph. I appreciate you saying that. That really resonated with me. That was pretty cool stuff. And I'll bet you many of our listeners right now are thinking the same thing. Man, this has been great.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Now, I know that right now you don't have a website. That's in the process. But where do you practice medicine, man? I mean, because obviously if I ever had to see a doctor, I'd want to see you more than just about anybody I could think of. So hopefully I'll never have to, but if I ever do, where are you at? Joseph, are you there? Wow. Well, we've got no audio on your side.
Do you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's weird.
You went totally silent when I asked that question. I'm like, did I ask the wrong question?
No. My speaker went out again. This is really weird. So I'm in central Pennsylvania, and I kind of shifted gears because I've been doing family medicine and urgent care, for some time. And I thought, what else could I do that would challenge me, that keep me in the game, and to still help people? And so I started working at a pain management place. And so for the past year, for 1 year, I've been working at pain management. But I'm still able to practice family med a little bit because some of the patients that come in, they don't have a family doc. And so I can give them suggestions, of course, of what to do. And I can provide some insight on what's going on in their lives. But ultimately, they really need to follow up with a PCP or their primary care doctor or find one. And, I'm at the point now where I'm thinking about opening up another practice because, my heart is really in the family med because I see, from cradle to the grave, so they say. And so I get to see everything. And it's a challenge, but I also get to help so many people along the way. And it's in the works. I'm looking at a building right now. Haven't told anybody this, so I guess I might as well leak it on your Leak Project show. Is that yep. So yeah, I'm gonna open a practice that's similar to my other one. It's gonna be family medicine. It's also gonna have like some holistic approaches, such as the energy healing, the hypnotherapy, nutrition. Probably do some things that are still legal today, which is nice, which are IV vitamin C, the Myers cocktail, which is great. Pennsylvania just passed the law for medical marijuana, so in the future I'll probably implement that. But other things besides just mainstream, I really want to give patients a choice. And I'm also going to do an organic restaurant / coffee shop. And it's all going to be organic. Everything we talked about tonight, I just want to be living it. Like I try to live it at myself, but I want to teach people. And so if they're coming to see me, as I said before, I respect them. If they respect my time, and I'll be like, well, hey, here's an organic restaurant. Go over there and try it. And there's a coffee shop. It's all organic. So try it. And, they may not have another opportunity. In fact, I only know of one organic restaurant around here, and it's an hour away. So, it's there's more and more people that are doing that, but it's not locally. And I just started raising chickens. Like I grew up on a farm. I went to Tractor Supply today, and I said, all right, I want these to be free-range chickens. I want organic feed. And they had it. And the lady's like, well, we don't have any on the shelf. You can order it. This is all new. We never really had organic chicken feed before, but now it's becoming a thing. And so, as you said before, I mean, we're living in some awesome times. The things that we took for granted, just raising food off the farm, corn and wheat and all these kind of things you take to the feed mill, and they make chop out of it for the pigs and different things like that. Or you do it yourself in your barn. Everything's becoming more mainstream and more technologically advanced, where it's already out there for you, so you can skip the step of planting such huge crops for your animals and things like that. But anyway, that's what I'm into right now, and that's where I'm living. I'm hoping that this restaurant, this building that I'm ready to purchase, will come online within the next couple months, and of course I'll have to come back on your show to update that.
Absolutely. That'd be fantastic. Maybe we can get you on here as a regular.
All right. Well, hey, if people are interested in what I have to talk about, I mean, I can talk about just about anything. I mean, I've been out there, I've seen so much, I've done so much, but I'm not like an expert. I can just give opinions about what I think and what I've seen. And I always say I don't want to push any beliefs on anybody, but I've kind of been there, done that. And if you want to pick my brain about what's going on in the world at the time, yeah, have me back. I'd love to come back.
Right on. I appreciate everything, Joseph. This has been great. I would really like to see a website one of these days put together for you. So if people wanted to just see all this information that you have, and if you have a YouTube channel too, because you do conferences and stuff like that, and you just got a lot of good stuff. So this has been great. And I'd also like to recommend our listeners subscribe, youtube.com/clandestine Time Lord. You'll get access to all the latest podcasts first and free. I mean, they're updated pretty much every single day. Sometimes we've got 10 shows a week. Sometimes we'll have 3 or 4 shows uploaded in one day. Folks, be the change you want to see. This is Rex Bear. Good night.